Hey, welcome into Crunch Time with Chris. He's head coach Clay Lasater of the undefeated Lockwood Tigers. We are brought to you today by Timex. Timex, have timeless fashion. No, we're not brought. We're still not sponsored by anyone, Coach. But hopefully they're going to see this interview and they'll start thinking about, you know what, I'd like to be advertising on the podcast. You know what I mean?
Right. They might as well get their name out there.
Yes, exactly. Hey, you guys have been getting your names out there. All right. So you're undefeated this season. And now, Coach, I want to, first of all, I was looking up your bio before we did all this, and you have worn so many hats over there at Lockwood. Starting off, a PE coach, right?
That's right.
By the way, I am the son of a retired not PE coach, PE teacher. I am the son of a PE teacher myself. So I have a big appreciation for that. I got the whole list right here. Former, baseball head coach?
For a little while, yes.
Yeah? Basketball?
Right.
Okay. God, this plays at my heart. This is my dad. My dad is like every sport. So I really appreciate that. It's good stuff. Athletics director.
Correct.
Principal of the high school. And now you're the superintendent.
Yeah, it's a small school, and so, you just do whatever you need to do.
That is awesome.
To make it work.
And you were born and raised in Lockwood as well.
I did. I graduated in 2000 and went to Missouri Valley College and played football up there, and then came back to Lockwood.
I think that's such a cool thing. Like, one thing I like to do when I'm doing like highlights is I love anytime I see like a name that comes up a lot with the school. Like sometimes, I don't know if you ever heard it, but I'll say, you don't mess with a Lasater in Lockwood. That's what I say. Like when your daughter Asa plays and when Peyton plays, when they went to the state championship game, it's so much, like it's so easy. It kind of rolls off the tongue because I know you're so ingrained into the fabric of that community there. And it's got to be such a special place for you, huh?
It has been, and it was that way for me growing up there, and that's what made me want to go back there and to raise a family there is there's a lot of great people and people who take pride in the school and the community, and that's what I felt, and I felt that from not just the community, the staff, the teachers, the coaches that I had, and those people left such an impression on me that I wanted to try to be the same.
Yeah, and you've overseen a lot of change there too. The 8-man, switching from 11-man to 8-man while you were there. Can you talk about what that process was like a handful of years ago when you guys did that?
That's not an easy decision. 8-man is not historically a big thing in the south, of the state, and so when you're making that shift, it's a shift for the community too, as well as the program. And we just knew that we had some smaller classes, enrollment-wise, coming, and so I felt like we needed 30 kids to play 11-man football, and so that was always our goal every year. We needed to play 11, we need to play JV, and we need 30. We didn't see that coming for several years, and 8-man was the right move for us, and luckily there's some other schools in the area that are also doing it, and so it's worked out.
Including your neighbors right down the road there. I think you're separated by a state highway and a Casey's General Store, right, with Greenfields. And that's always a big game. We got to go out there for our game of the week a few years ago. Part of your undefeated start to the season here at 7-0, when you guys prepare for an 8-man game and a rivalry game like this, what are some of the things you think about and you talk to the kids about?
Our kids get pretty excited about the Greenfield game. It's just historically it's been a big rivalry. They call it the Dade County Super Bowl, and kids get excited. And whenever we get ready for one of these games, we're looking at certain matchups and how we put our kids in the best position. And right there you can see early on Sean Contreras, being able to get to the edge. Sean's a very quick athlete, and so whether that's getting him in space or even using some misdirection with him for Landry to be able to get in the end zone, as you can see there.
Yeah, we enjoy it. We talk about how the 8-man games can be like pinball games, right? Like ding, all these different points. We had Greenfield that just put up over 100 points the week before. When you play these games, I'm sure when you made the transition, you realized, okay, this is a more offensive league. Defense is tougher to play when you have fewer bodies on the field like that. What was that adjustment like for you?
It definitely was an adjustment. You see scores in 8-man when you're 11-man school, and you just wonder, like, how is that possible? Why is there no defense being played? And so after the adjustment, you realize how many times you have guys in one-on-one tackle situations that are very different than 11-man. And so, we were just game planning last night with our staff, and, we were trying to prepare for Appleton City, who's really good. And in 11-man, we always felt like you have time to make adjustments. Somebody might rip off a 10, 12-yard play, but you can make some defensive adjustments before you maybe give up a score. In 8-man, it's a score immediately, and so you're making adjustments, but you're maybe already down a score or two as you're making those adjustments. So, we're learning that, and we're trying to adjust and be able to be prepared and get our kids in the right spot, and you better have them there from the get-go.
And I'm sure, too, when you're down at any point in a game, you want to remind the kids, okay, if I'm watching an NFL game at home and my team's down 21 points, it feels like it's over. But in this league, you can score 21 points in like 5 minutes. So you probably have to remind the kids that a lot, huh?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, it took an adjustment with balloon scores late in games,
Yeah.
and so, I think even in 11-man, you always wanted to maintain, if you had a 35-point advantage late, you wanted to keep the clock running, that kind of thing. And so in 8-man, because people can score so fast, a 35-point lead wasn't going to hold for very long, and so you have to have more than that to keep that running clock, and so there's just a little bit of a difference between the two games.
Yeah. Oh, I love how we have tons of video from this game, from the Greenfield matchup. And, we don't have video from the Archie game, but I want to talk about it. I mean, I know that was the team. I think I have it written down here. In the last 2 seasons, you've only lost 5 games coming into the season, and 4 of them were against Archie, right? And, first week, you get that test right away. Is that something the kids were thinking about, like, all summer? Like, we get Archie right away?
Yes, for sure. I mean, we played them week 1 and then played them in the quarterfinals the last couple of years. And so, we've lost to them week 1 and then we ended the season with a loss in the quarterfinals. So we've kind of bookended our season with losses to Archie for a couple of years. And so, we saw them in camp this summer, and that was already what our kids were talking about is, we're going to play them week 1, and that's just a couple weeks away, and they were genuinely believing, I think, or at least they were saying they were believing, like, we can go win this game, but actually going out and beating somebody that's kind of had the upper hand on you for a while, that's just such a mental hurdle.
It must feel so good. I know what you mean. I mean, obviously, like, anyone who's played sports has a nemesis, and it's kind of what's for you guys, right? And when you look at Appleton City, the team that you have next, do you see a little bit of a version of Lockwood there? They also, this season, only have 1 loss, and it's to Archie, and you know what that's like. Technically, you're going to be the favorite because you're the undefeated squad, but you see a lot of similarities between the team.
I would assume that there are some similar feelings, with Appleton City. We've had a couple really good matchups with them the last couple of years, and we've been able to be on the winning side of that. So I think Appleton probably would view us similarly as what we saw Archie, but they're also in the same district with Archie, so that's really their big game. It's trying to get ready for Archie again and playing them in districts. So that
is fun. Did you, when you were scouting this, when you were making the transition, and we've got the video from New Heights Christian game here up as well. Another big win for you guys earlier this year. When you were making that transition, when you first started scouting, I bet, like, what was that like, scouting 8-man versus after having, spent, 15 years or so scouting 11-man as a head coach? For you, that must have been really eye-opening, huh?
Yeah, it was, and trying to look at what we're seeing out of different offenses, because a lot of our focus was how are we going to tweak what we do defensively. We were always a 4-3 team, an 11-man, and so we were trying to adjust what our kids kind of already knew and make that work, and then trying to figure out when you take those 3 guys off, how you adjust to the things you see. So yeah, watching lots of film, looking at different schemes, and trying to figure out how we can match that.
I think we're frozen on the screen there. That was the coin toss, though, right there. It's okay. It's kind of live TV.
You can see how big a couple of those kids from New Heights were. They had some size.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's got to be. Yeah. That's got to be fun when you then you have to work around the edges, right?
Right.
That's awesome, Coach. I tell you what. So if I have my math right, is this the 6th year of 8-man for you guys?
This would be our. Gosh, I've lost track. This is our 5th year.
Okay, right there. So, and you have the back-to-back district titles. Luckily, you're not in that Archie district, so even though those losses happened, they weren't like your opponent here. They were in the same district. And so your team has championship success, something to draw from. And I'm sure your group of guys growing up in the system here, now you've got a senior class that has only known 8-man, who's only known the exact program that you have. It must be just so exciting for them to think about the goal in front of them, the fact that they've proven that they can beat the back-to-back defending state champions like Archie. I mean, it's got to be really an exciting time for you guys.
It has been. Our kids have really enjoyed the season, and they have really been excited about that win and feeling like they got over a hurdle. So it's been a lot of fun. We've got juniors and seniors now who have played a ton of varsity snaps. They started as freshmen, and so now we're playing with kids who not only, like you said, have been playing 8-man, but they're also kids who have started a lot of games and are now upperclassmen.
And yeah, we've got the video from last year's Greenfield game up now, and obviously a lot of those same kids are here, and some of them have moved on, but I'm sure, in a town like Lockwood, I love, whenever someone asks me about Friday Night Football and I say what my favorite part is, I say it's because the whole town, it feels like, comes out to the games. And where else are you going to just get everyone together? Maybe a state fair over the summer, you know what I mean? Or the local fair, things like that. But a football game brings people together like nothing else. What are Friday nights like for you guys over there in Lockwood?
We love Friday nights, and it's kind of a social thing, like you said, for the community, and even people that maybe aren't there necessarily to watch football, they're there to hang out, you know, and so it just makes it a fun atmosphere when, especially like, what we're watching here with us in Greenfield is, it almost is a county event, and we call it the Dade County Super Bowl, and you're going to get everybody from Lockwood and everybody from Greenfield together and supporting their schools. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And the Lasater family is having, really a great run here. Obviously, your daughter Asa in the state championship game with the rest of the Tigers last year for softball, and Peyton as well, her cousin, family affair type thing. That has to be so, like, as a dad watching that. I mean, you don't have to be the coach; you can just watch, right? What's that like for you, with the difference wise?
It was pretty special, and those are such rare moments, to be able to get to an opportunity to like play in a state championship. That's so rare, and so to get to see your kids go experience that's really, really special. And I think we tried to understand that even though they were young and they were freshmen, those opportunities very rarely come around, and so we just need to enjoy the moment. And
loved it. Loved the Lockwood run. I was there for both games, for the semifinal and the championship game. And like you said, they're so young. I mean, your daughter's going to be a sophomore. I remember watching her play basketball against Chadwick, who eventually won the state championship. And they were chanting her name the whole time. And she just plowed right through. She never seemed to even hear it. So you've probably taught her, to tune out the noise, huh?
Well, you want them to be able to do that. That's way easier said than done as an adult to tell teenagers, don't listen to the outside noise. But that's not always easy.
So what does she like better? Does she like softball or basketball?
Growing up, she just liked whatever was in season. As she's aging, she's kind of gravitating a little more towards basketball, but she just loves to compete. And so, right now we're in volleyball season, and she loves to compete in volleyball. And whenever basketball season comes around, then that'll be her favorite, and she'll go play.
Yeah, because that wasn't something that the program's used to, right? Going to the state championship game in softball. And when I was interviewing some of the players and coaches, you do notice when it's new and when it's just that first time exuberance of because I also did the Warsaw game. Warsaw a little bit more. They had Briley Brewster, the senior, who was just an all-timer, and so for them it was more of something where they were used to kind of that success. Now she's going to be a part of building that success on the softball and basketball side. And what have you told her she needs to be in terms of like a leader,
I think just being consistent with your work ethic, trying to be consistent with the way you approach everything every day. One thing we would try to work on with her a lot of times is emotions, making sure your emotions are under check, and as a competitor, sometimes those can show, and we try to tell her, you've got to control those things and not let your emotions be on your sleeve. And regardless of whether it's when you're not playing well or a call doesn't go your way, whatever it might be, you just got to play and be consistent.
That is why I say do not mess with a Lasater in Lockwood, okay? So I think we've got more video from last year's season here. The postseason run you guys had. Let's see, which one is this? This is Liberal?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, cool. So this was your matchup against Liberal. I believe it was a shutout win. We're using a new system here. It doesn't tell me. I had these notes before. But another example of you guys getting prepared for that postseason run. When you have a game like this where you've got your players not looking past an opponent to get to an Archie or whoever's going to be down the line. It must be pretty satisfying for you as a coach.
Yeah, I thought our kids played really well in this game last year, and we actually were able to create a lot of turnovers. And you saw one there where Roper Gray had that interception, and he had multiple interceptions actually in that game. And so I felt like our defense played really well. They were getting in the right spots, and that's what you really want to see is your kids executing things, and that means they're locked in, they're mentally engaged, and they're not just going through the motions, like you said, looking down the road at another game.
Yeah. I was looking it up, Coach. 1974, the last time you guys were state champs. 2001, runner-up. So this team has a path in front of them, knowing that you've beaten the back-to-back undefeated state champs. You've done it. You've shown it. It was a close one, right? 2-point game, but you guys did it. Got over that hump. What would it mean to this program to finally get another trophy there in the trophy case?
It'd be pretty special. The whole last school year I thought was amazing. You kind of alluded to, like the girls and the softball program going to a championship game. Our golf team won a state championship last year.
Of course, how could I forget? Yes.
There's been some things the last 12 months that have been pretty special within our school, and this would just be another piece of when we look back at certain periods of Lockwood's history, we had some really special years in the 90s where we had volleyball trips to the Final Four multiple years in a row. We had basketball trips to the Final Four, and so when you grow up there seeing that, watching it as a kid, you want to experience that, and now I've got kids that I want them to experience that, and to see some success on both boys and girls side, and trying to almost rebuild, some of those different decades of awesome years in Lockwood history.
I think you're kind of living a dream of a lot of people with their alma mater. You like you just mentioned, in the 90s, what you grew up seeing, and now you get to help build that for the younger generation. Do you pinch yourself sometimes when you think about what your role is here with your hometown?
It doesn't seem real. I think when you're just so busy with the grind every day, you don't really even stop and think about it. But those have always been things that we have wanted to try to work to achieve at Lockwood. And like I said, I wanted to come back because of those people, whether it was, people like the Shoreses or, Coach Cornish, those guys that had that type of success. And those were the people that impacted my life a lot, at that age. And you just kind of want to go be like those people.
All right, so you got Appleton City coming up. They go by App City, right?
Right.
Say that right on TV? Okay, cool. Is there anything I didn't ask you about your program here that you wanted to mention? I mean, this is a fun little podcast we do, and I always like to ask that question because I don't want you to leave without me asking every question possible that you might want to talk about here.
I think it's just an exciting group of kids. They've started, like I said, they started a lot of games as young kids. We have multiple now that are juniors that start as freshmen. We've got a couple that are seniors that start as freshmen. And so they're now, and you go through a grind as a young kid, playing varsity every Friday night and kind of getting beat up a little bit. And so now these guys are on the upper end of that, and they're reaping the benefits of those grinding days that they survive through. And so it's just good to see kids have that success, especially when they put that work in to get to where they're at.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you making the trip over here and talking to us about it. We've been trying to wrap our brains around your story and the program's story for the last few years, the growth that we've seen when we go to the games and when we just see the scores. And it's been pretty fun to watch just what's going on at your school right now.
Well, I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me. And, it's good to be able to see our kids be able to maybe see themselves, up on the screen a little bit, because I think they worked really hard, and they get excited, when those things happen, or when you're coming out to a game on a Friday night and they see that KY3 camera, that means something to them.
Okay. So. Well, we love to be able to help. We love seeing, like I said, I specifically remember how excited they were to be interviewed and to be part of that whole process, and we love that. We love seeing that. It never gets old for us.
Yeah, we love having you.
All right, Coach. So now, by the way, Coach coming in and working with me, we're using the studio here as opposed to our dedicated podcast room that we call CTV, because I happened to book it at a time when someone else was using it, and I totally forgot to look. So thanks for working with me on that. And we do a thing at the end. The movie camp, when they have the thing and they say next take or the end. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
Okay, we do that at the end. Me and the coach always do this. You ready? You want to do it with me?
So I'm gonna have imaginary holding one.
Yeah. I go 3, 2, 1, and we do it. Okay, and then it ends. Okay. Crunch time with Chris. 3, 2, 1, crack. That's good. All right, that was fun.